Good evening, everyone, and thank you again for making the time to join us this evening. This is the second of 4 sessions that we'll be hosting as part of the book launch and fundraising initiative for CAL. Thank you once again to Margaret for this wonderful opportunity to work with us. But before we begin tonight's event, we're just going to run through some housekeeping, if you'll bear with me. One of the things that I wanted to highlight is that we actually will be having a Mandarin session in March for our Chinese-speaking caregivers. So do look forward to that one. The other thing I wanted to highlight is that 40% of the sales from our book, from Margaret's book tonight, purchased between now and April 2022, will be donated to CAL. So thank you so much, everyone, for your generous support. I also want to thank, on behalf of CAL, Word Image for their generous sponsorship to this fundraising campaign. We are really appreciative. And I would like to request that everybody who is here attending our session today to please type your Q&A questions in the Zoom chat. We will be monitoring to ensure that every participant is respected and feels you are in a safe space. I do ask that you please be respectful of one another's time during our session tonight. As much as we want to be able to address every question that comes on during our session, please do bear in mind that this is not a platform for us to do offloading, but if there is anybody in the room who feels that you need further support in terms of your caregiving journey, please do not hesitate to send us a message in the chat, and one of our team members from Cal will be able to assist you and take the conversation offline. But ultimately, we want this to be a wonderful session for everyone attending. Really looking forward to Margaret's sharing. We seek your kind understanding in sharing this conversational space with others. Let's be considerate and mindful of the needs of our fellow participants. And gentle reminder that this session is recorded. So if you do not consent to being recorded, please do exit or watch the recording when it's made available at a later time. And that's pretty much it. As you can see on your screen right now, we will be having links that you'll be able to click on to make purchase for the books, either in English or in Chinese. The e-version is available online. And shortly, we're going to be having Margaret, the author, to address us for this evening. But in the meantime, I am actually really excited to invite our Chief Executive, Mr. Tim Lee, and he's going to do Executive Director, who is going to be doing a welcome address for us this evening. Tim, hello.
Hello, and yeah, I'm so glad to be able to be here. Thanks, Nadia. Good to see you again, and thanks for hosting this. You are really looking very professional, sounding very professional. So thanks for doing an excellent job hosting the events. So thanks very much. So yeah, really good to see Margaret again, and first time to meet Ho Fang as well. And we have another panelist, Wai Han. So thank you very much for coming together to give this talk for the audience here. I'm not sure what is the composition of the audience. Are you largely caregivers who are familiar with CAL, or are you just someone who is interested in the topic and you really want to find out more? So, but before I say anything more, I better hold on to follow my script. I also prepare a script just to make sure I don't go all over the place, and I think that would be more respectful of your time too. So let me just greet everybody a wonderful evening. So it's been 5 days into the new year, so I don't think it's too late. So happy new year. So to everybody, I really appreciate the new year because you know, for me, every year it is a reset, right? Where we learn to let go of the past year or the past years, and we just look forward to the new year ahead and hope, having that hope, right, that the new year will be better, right? So I think that describes pretty much every one of us here, the ability to start all over again. So really that applies to many of us, and however, for some of us, it's not really true, because some of us, whether here or people we know about, we are faced with a challenge or a deep-seated situation which doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon, even with the coming of the new year, right? So the situation is not changing anytime soon, and probably for those people, we enter the new year with a heavy heart. And in 2021, for Caregivers Alliance, we have conducted more than 80 C2C classes. So those of you who I mean, some of you would be familiar, you have been attending our class before. So this C2C program, there was really an upsurge in 2021. We did about 80 classes, and it's still ongoing, still counting in a way. Oh no, I shouldn't say that because the year is over. So yeah, it's about 80 plus. But the training is really for caregivers or persons with mental health issue. But we are starting to also see some caregivers, some people who call themselves caregivers to be. That means they want to help other people, or they are not really a caregiver, but they are aware of somebody who needs help. And so they are attending our program, and we welcome them. So I'm sure in the audience tonight, there will be some who have undergone the training in the last 10 years, our C2C training. This year itself, or rather last year itself, I attended graduation classes for about 70 C2C classes, right? So heard a lot of stories, and every time I attend a graduation, I always go away with a very, very uplifted feeling, because I really hear stories of caregivers, even though it's a 12 weeks or 8 weeks program, they are sharing how things are changing for them, right? And their classmate kind of recounted some of the transformation. Like for example, before they started, the classmates noticed they were very down, they were very unsure of themselves. And then 12 weeks on, or 8 weeks on, 12 weeks is for our C2C program for person with mental health issue. 8 weeks is for our C2C for dementia caregivers, as well as C2C for young caregivers. We also have a program for eating disorder. But the thing is that they could see the transformation of our caregivers. I'm sharing this because I'm amazed. I'm amazed that even though we only spend once a week with them, 2.5 hours, we can see some changes happening. And the best is always to hear about how caregivers share how their loved ones are actually experiencing a change. And though, I mean, these are loved ones who suffer from mental health conditions, and they are recovering, or they are responding to the things that we have taught them, the different ways of communicating, different ways of handling them and their challenges, different way of relating with them. But the truth is that for many of them, their situation never changed, just as what I described earlier. The new year has come, but the situation remained unchanged, right? It's still very, very difficult for these caregivers. But that is relating to the situation. But I can tell you this, for the caregivers, I think something is changing for them. I'm so glad they came forward to receive help, to be trained, and to get some support from CAL, Caregivers Alliance, and also from their classmates. And for these people, well, I'm really happy for them. Many of them shared that they are now more understanding towards their loved one because they understand what is going on for someone who suffers from mental health issue. One thing that always come out is many of them say, I'm now more patient. I can imagine, you know, it's not easy to care for somebody, you know, it gets into you, you become very upset. But they also share that they have greater empathy, right? What is this empathy? And really, what is really happening is also, they seem to be more confident, right, of themselves, how to handle crisis, how to handle problems that arise, and they are more aware of what resources and help are available, how to work with the professionals, the psychiatrists, the therapists, and so on. And I'm always very happy for them when they share that they are more hopeful of the future. Although they are not seeing much change yet, but they are hopeful, right? And they often share that they are very relieved that they are not alone. For the longest time, they thought they are the only one who is going through all this, but then they realize as they interact and they hear the sharing that there are many other people who are just like them. And this knowing of the fact that there are others who are like them actually give them strength to push on, right? And finally, they also realize it's okay to take care of themselves. Self-care is very important. You know, we met so many wonderful caregivers. They are so devoted to caregiving to their loved ones that they neglect caring for themselves. When we share with them that you need to self-care to sustain, right? It's like an aha to them, you know, it's like they never realized it because they are so focused on loving their loved one, caring for their loved one. So it was a big relief to them when we told them, it's okay, you know, it's okay to take care of yourself. It's okay to enlist the help of other people so that you can take time to have some self-care. It's actually all okay. So I'm so glad to meet so many caregivers in the last 1 year at least, but also the 2 and 3 years before. I joined only about 3.5 years, but CAL has a wonderful start. Many of our staff who were there from the beginning are the reason why we are so successful today. I will call it successful because I think it's making an impact on the lives of caregivers, and that's what really drives us. So I'm really sharing this a little bit more because for those of you who are not aware of what we do, we basically exist for caregivers. We train them, we support them, and we'll journey with them for as long as it takes. And I'm so, like I say, for me, every time I attend a graduation class, I walk away feeling very motivated myself and inspired by the sharing of our caregivers. Tonight, I'm very sure you'll benefit from the sharing that's going to happen. I've known Margaret since about 3.5 years ago. She's a wonderful volunteer with CAL, but I know her situation is not easy and she continues to face challenge, but yet she is willing to step forward to help others who are just like her. So I'm very thankful to Margaret. I'm looking forward to hear from Ho Fan. I'm looking forward to also hear from Wai Han. And I'm sure, like I said, some of you here are already caregivers. You've been through our program. So to those of you who have gone through our program, can I enlist your help? Please don't forget, you promised us that you will be an advocate for mental health awareness, caregiving. Please do that. Tonight, before you sleep, can you text somebody? Invite them to our C2C program. If it has helped you, please pass on the news. As you know, our program continues to be offered in a complimentary fashion because we got good support from the government, from donors and supporters. So we are very thankful for that. And that's what we hope to continue to do. So I'm very glad that all of you turned up tonight to learn, to hear the sharing. And I really also hope for you that you also tell your story, right? So we are more than happy to feature you on our Fireside Chat series, because I think sometimes beyond learning about the contents, right, the knowledge, the skills about caregiving, mental health, is actually the sharing of our caregivers. You know, they share from real experiences, caring for somebody, for some of them for many years. And actually it's the sharing that help our caregivers a lot, because when they hear those sharing, they could identify and they can also pick up pointers and tips on how they would want to do it differently when they go back home, when they face their loved ones next. So I've been inspired by so many wonderful caregiver stories, and I'm very sure tonight I will also continue to be inspired. So lovely to see so many of you, those who have been familiar with C2C and our CAL. But for those who are new to us, please check us out, contact us and find out what we do and what we can offer. And I'm very sure of one thing. Someone suffering from mental health is not really something uncommon. There are many, many people who suffer from mental health issues. It's just like our eyes are not open. We didn't see, we are not sensitive enough. But if you really look around, there are many, many people who suffer from mental health issue. But even more so, right? For every person who suffers from mental health issue, maybe there are 3 caregivers looking after them. So if you know of a caregiver, please refer them to us. I think we can help them to a certain point. So do refer them to us. All right, so I don't know how much time I took, but I better pass the time back to Nadia and to the panelists. So once again, I'm so happy to be on this webinar, and I look forward to the sharing from the team. Thanks very much. That's all from me. Bye.
Thank you so much, Tim. Always a pleasure. But yes, just like Tim mentioned, I myself am a former C2C alumni. I joined the class in 2016, and I've been trying to volunteer where I can. And I also had the pleasure of working with our colleagues here at CAL. JT, who is on the team, has very kindly been my leader when I helped her in training for our new batch of classes. And I also recently joined a dementia class because my mom has also been diagnosed with dementia. So I echo Tim's comments, and I really hope that there'll be more of you out there who will be open to advocating. And in the meantime, I would like to now set the stage for our author and Margaret, who has been so generous in sharing her story. And I hope the rest of you will enjoy our evening and participate as well. Thank you. Margaret, over to you.
Thank you, Nadia. Happy New Year to all. And tonight, the subject of our panel discussion is the shift in mindset towards caregiving. We will spend about 40 minutes on the panel discussion, and then we will open the floor to you to put forward any question that you may have for the panelists. All right. So this evening, our guests are Ho Fan and Wai Han. Ho Fan, Wai Han, would you like to say something about yourself? Ho Fan, would you like to start?
Okay, so I thought the ladies first. Maybe I'll let the ladies start first.
Go
How
ahead.
about you?
I am just the wife. And sometimes I call myself the slave, but a happy slave, because truly it is in great gratitude to Ho Fang that I guess you can see me now and hear from me. I had been, diagnosed with a bipolar condition all the way when I was 18, and I'm now 65. And I got married at 26. So imagine the long journey that Ho Fang has had with me. Okay, over to you, Fang.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Very blessed New Year to all of you. My name is Ho Fang, and I'm actually I got married to Wai Han back in 1982, and we have 2 children who are now in the 30s, early 30s, and the other one is in the late 30s. I used to work with the SIA group of companies. Can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I used to work with the SIA group of companies, and after which I started a business in publishing. And Wai Han, who was a journalist with the with SP, well, not journalist, he was an executive. Executive with SPH group of companies. Left SPH to join me when I started the company in graphic design and publishing. Yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you, Wai Han and Ho Fang, for the introduction. We are really glad to have you with us, especially both of them are also the sponsor for this donation campaign to CAL. Now, as for myself, I'm Margaret. I am a contented retiree since 2013. All right, and I'm a mother to 2 boys, aged 25 and 21, and a caregiver to my spouse with schizophrenia. I am an author of the One Husband and Two Men book. All right, so okay, so this evening I would like to start off by drawing your attention to this particular slide. All right, this is what I call the journey towards mindset transformation, and truly I'm sharing my caregiving experience roadmap over a time progression. Now, last week we discussed about separating the illness from the person. This is step 1 in the caregiving experience that we need to overcome before you can actually progress to the subsequent step. So step 2 is setting realistic expectation that this is a long haul responsibility, and that followed by building an inclusive family, especially in the core family. And then we can move forward to set sights on hope and future. And that means we celebrate improvements and progress along the way. All right. So we shall start with discussing step 2, since we have already covered step 1 last week. All right. Okay. So perhaps I would like to address this question to Ho Fang. All right. Looking back, how important is it to set realistic expectations and why?
Yeah, that is a very important question actually, because that is really the key to one of the major pillars to surviving. The reason why that's so is because to give you a little bit of background context, Wai Han and I were classmates in NUS or in the then Singapore University, and she was a high performer. I was at the bottom of the class. She was usually at the top because she was always at the library. I was always running around my motorbike, Yeah, but somewhere along the way, after we got married, and of course she became a high-performing executive with the SPH group of companies. Then it was known as Federal or times. I can't remember now. Yeah, they changed so many times. Yeah, and of course, when I married Waihan, the woman I married was someone whom I respected, whom I respect. Not respected. Whom I respect as a as a somebody who's very effective, very efficient, very articulate. Yeah, really someone whom you independent. You didn't really have to take care of her. You just got to open the car door. You got to make sure you get through the door first. That kind of thing. But she was powerful. Yeah, she could be independent all by herself. Feminist. Feminist number one. Yeah. And so when that kind of situation, that's the person you married, right? And of course, when you got married to the kind of situation, you expect a certain return, right? Otherwise, yeah, this woman is going to be, going to be able to take care of herself and all that. Yeah. Imagine the shock, I got, when after marriage, I think the first instance was when our first child came along in 1984. We were married ROM in 1982. So when the first child came along, and there I was, totally unaware, because there was this very efficient, very effective, very powerful woman. Oh, she'll be able to take care of my child. So while the baby was changing the diapers and all that, I was sitting there watching the Olympics, trying to see whether Singapore could win gold or not. That was in 1984. Yeah, and there she was struggling on her own, and I didn't really. I mean, it was a bit bad of
MCP,
me.
say it, MCP.
A bit MCP, yeah. So I just watched TV, and my wife will take care of everything. She's so powerful, And then when and that was a trigger point of her underlying condition, which is actually mood swings. You can swing from a very high to a very low kind of situation, and suddenly you're caught with this situation where the woman that you married, the person that you respect, has suddenly become someone who's like totally out of whack, all of this world. She was crying one moment, flying high, at the next moment she was right down in the dumps, the swing in moods was tremendously frightening, and so the expectation suddenly changed, Hey, how how come like that, yeah. So and I mean, what was worse was that when we brought her to see the psychiatrist, the doctor was also shocked at the extent of her illness, and he was telling me, and this is a very respectable doctor, psychiatrist. We went to the best doctor in those days. He told me, your wife is very sick, I think it would take her at least 7 years to recover. There I was with a 1-month-old baby in my arms, and my wife, this powerful woman who's going to take care of everything for me, take care of me for the rest of my life. I'm going to have to take care of her. How am I going to do it? I don't even know how to change diapers, And so that awareness, you have to change expectation. Yeah, you got to be then, okay, I have to do this because the child is waiting. This is your son, and this is your wife. More important, this is your wife. You married her. There's a person behind this new person that you see. Of course, it's not as bad as schizophrenia, which I think Margaret experienced, but it was still a great change in the kind of person that the person whom you married and the one that you are working with now, And if you don't change those expectations, I think it's going to be problematic, because definitely when somebody doesn't meet your expectations, then in the work world, he or she gets sacked. In a social world, well, I mean, the big T, I'm out here, because you're looking after yourself, right? Yeah. So and so you can ask yourself this, you need to change, because the person you married was not like this when you married. And so you remember the oath, oath, can I call it oath? The vows that you made, the marriage vows, you know, that you took, yeah, in health and in sickness and in you know, through thick and thin, you know, yeah. And so those expectations changed immediately, yeah. And I'm glad they changed because it made me a better person. It changed me from a she says it's MCP but I thought it was my entitlement, you know. Yeah, it changed me from yeah, it really made me a better person. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So Wai Han, did Ho Fang's response kind of resonate with how his attitude has changed in caring for you?
I'm glad it changed because it changed for the better. Like he said, he became a better person, more aware of what it is to live with someone who is not as effective as expected. And because he was always there, I know I could always turn to him. He was like a mirror almost. He could sense that something is going wrong again. You know, it's time to see the psychiatrist again. More medication. Or when I think I can cope, I will share with him that I think I can do with less medication. Because face it, there are negative effects of medication. Yeah. So he will say, okay, we'll check with the doctor. And very, very fortunately, the psychiatrists that I've worked with always look to him. So what do you say, Mr. Fong? And then if he nods his head, then they say, okay, you can change. So this kind of strong support and great care, I'll say. So much so that I think he often walks on tenterhooks, if not on sharp glass, you know, to watch out for me. Yeah. And of course, I must say, it's not just him. I have siblings who also do the same. And he could often rely on them to take the load off for a certain stretch. And I say that after my first episode at 18, where I talk about I can remember very exactly from like January to October, where I so-called recovered. And that's when I stopped medication. I went on to university to work and got married. You know, that whole stretch of years, I was off meds. And that was the false front probably I put up for him. And he was taken lock, stock, and barrel. Yes.
Fell for her. Fell for it.
So, but see, that's the thing. Because of our background as fellow students, fellow volunteers on a very, I'll say, a significant social magazine in those years, 79 to 84, because there was this background of working together, not just as husband and wife who fell lovey-dovey in love, but really fellow workers with ideals, similar ideals, and a kind of mission. So I think it made it so much more possible for him to remember the good in me and to forgive the bad in me. And on my part, I still have scales over my eyes. I still only see most of the good in him, very little of the bad in him.
Well, it's so refreshing to see how the both of you describe this, and I think it's wonderful that you can even work together. Even the fact that Ho Fang have to see the ugly and the good side of you at home and at work, so it's sort of balanced out in this relationship, which I think is very healthy. Now, if I look at myself, really, it really began with ignorance for me about this illness, right? I have no prior knowledge of what mental illness is all about. And obviously, being a senior executive and being a high achiever, obviously, I'm impatient, right? So I would expect to see positive results, of change in my husband if certain action is taken. So I think, in that sense, I put unnecessary pressure upon myself and my husband in that expectation. And so, if you are expecting things to return to normal, naturally, it is really abnormal, right? In the case of mental illness. So thus, I was even contemplating to walk out on my marriage, right? Because of my own unrealistic expectation. And if a caregiver choose to kind of place hopes on full recovery and dismiss that treatment and recovery is going to be a short process and not a long haul responsibility, we will end up having a dysfunctional family. And because everyone will not be prepared to adapt and live with the illness. Just like right now, right? We all need to learn to live with COVID-19. We need to adapt and figure out how to live with it. So the same for mental illness. If we do not set the realistic expectation, we are in for a tough time. The whole family will be dysfunctional for sure. Yeah. Okay. So perhaps now it's time to move on to the next step. We talk about building an inclusive family. All right. To Wai-Han, how involved were other family members in caregiving besides Ho Fang? You mentioned earlier there are other family members that were helping out at that time. Were there extended family members other than the core that were living with you then? How much involvement were from them? Yeah.
So I have 3 sisters and a brother, and they were not living with me, of course. We were a nuclear family. Then I had my parents-in-law and sisters and brothers-in-law. And because all of them were aware of my illness, especially my siblings, right? On their part, there was no judgment. So they supported by sometimes taking the children out, and buying things for us when necessary and so on. And on my in-laws' part, they were very understanding. Though, of course, in the earlier days, when I first fell ill, I fell ill again when my son was born, my mom-in-law would say to Ho Fang, this is in retrospect, I heard, why don't you bring her to the temple, pray and all that, right? So thankfully, Ho Fang could explain to her that we need medicine, we need doctors, not that kind of treatment. So that's the extended family. I want to talk about my own children because I did have several episodes after that still. Way into my 50s, 60s, even early 60s. Brief spells of a few months, but my children were growing up. I can remember my children were in secondary school. And there was once where I needed ECT treatment. Then Ho Fang had to drive me there. But because of the timing, the children came along in their school uniform. That's my memory. And they never showed any disrespect or, should I say, fear of me or dread of interacting with me. To them, I was still their mommy. At the time, I became a full-time homemaker. So even though I couldn't cook for them, or do anything but lie down on the couch the whole day, 10 hours at a stretch. There was no recrimination. They don't say despise or point a finger and say, what a lazy mom. No such thing. So in their quiet ways, they were supporting me too. And I'm very thankful. Hofang must have explained to them behind the scenes what's happening, and it made them accept the situation better. And of course, when I overcame each spell, I was back to my, not the tiger mom. I didn't bother with their school bags, never checked them from kindergarten days. And that's what helped me to survive, because I did not stress myself further. Yeah? I told my son when he was only in primary 2, I told him, it's okay, if you grow up to be a garbage collector. Because as long as you are a very responsible garbage collector, cleaning your area thoroughly, I'll be so proud of you. Now, when I say that to him, I don't know what confidence it gave him, but it surely gave me a lot of peace. I didn't have to look at his test papers. I never studied with him. He could do whatever he wanted. And so too with my daughter. Yeah. And 2 of them have turned out not bad. And so I think this ability to also de-stress yourself is very, very important. As a patient, right, you also have to learn to give things up. So for 14 years, I was a homemaker. And I tell you seriously, I was in pajamas the whole day, except when I have to go down to buy food or whatever. Yeah. So there was no sense of, not that I didn't self-care. I still did my bathing, my brushing teeth and everything. Yeah. It wasn't to the bad extent where I stopped doing that. But yeah, there were days where I just couldn't decide what to eat. So it can be as bad as that. You walk round and round the huge hawker center, come back empty-handed. So I'll say my condition was really no joke, I think, especially for Hofang, because he then had to really be the breadwinner as well as the home care person in a way. Home care by not chiding me, not scolding, not questioning. What have you done today? No such questions from him. Yeah.
I wish I would, I have known you then. I could have seek some advice, because I was a tiger mom while I was a caregiver, right? So the stress from, caregiving for my husband and stress about my children's education and their upbringing years, right? So I had no opportunity of knowing you that. Otherwise, I would have learned something from you. Okay, to stress myself as a caregiver. So Hofang, when do you actually bring your children into this journey of caregiving? Meaning that at what age, and how did you actually, seamlessly, bring them into the picture, and also handing over, delegating some responsibility to them?
Well, okay, actually, Raihan told you all the good parts. She didn't. She didn't tell you the bad parts. The frightening
because
parts.
I didn't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. What happened was that her first episode was when you see this condition is triggered by life events, by critical life events. So it could be the birth of a child, it could be the death of a parent, of a loved one, it could be a retrenchment, it could be that kind of life events that suddenly trigger something in your mind, and you then sort of like go overboard. So in Ryan's case, it was actually, firstly, was the birth of our first child. That was the first instance. And that one, she sort of really went, I think she even forgot what she did, I mean, when she was in hospital, I went in, and there she was, facing the wall and trying to climb up the wall like Spider-Man, like that, So I was like wondering what she's doing. And I don't think she recalls that at all, things like that. And that was when she was sort of like, I think that was totally out of whack, that part. And of course, the child was too young for me to explain anything, So we just had to sort of take care of the child in the proper way and so on, yeah. And then the second incident was, of course, a little more. Well, it was a national incident. Something happened. I won't repeat that here, but something happened And I think we were not very happy with the government. You know, so and then she went into this spiral, downward spiral again, you know, and actually that resulted in the premature birth of our second child. Yes, our second child was born prematurely, and of course that added to it, you know, because she sort of in hospital, she went into all kinds of she fell, she fainted, cut herself, you know, broke glass, everything, yeah, and the child, yeah, so and then that brought her into another spiral, yeah. But the good things, because don't forget, these are all circular, what you call moods up and down. The bad parts were when she sort of like became a potato couch, sat around, not knowing what to do, you know, that kind of stuff, yeah. But the frightening parts were when she went high, you know. And then that was when she became like, well, I wouldn't say tiger mom, but she thought she was the Prime Minister of Singapore, you know. You know, I remember, and she was, and this is the part where I think the innate compassionate part of her came through, actually. And in a way, sometimes it's a bit good. You know, it helped a little bit, because there was once we went to hospital, and we came out of hospital, I went to fetch the car. When I came back, she got into the car, and then as we drove off, she said, you know, I met a man outside the hospital. I said, yeah. And he said, he had only one leg, and he didn't have money to buy you know, the artificial, what's it called?
Prosthesis.
Prosthesis, yeah. So I gave him $500, you know. I was earning like $1,000, you know, a month.
Okay.
I gave him $500 to buy. And yeah, the one of the symptoms is expenditure. You tend to spend a lot. You tend to, you know, not, yeah. So and again, as I said, you know, these two incidents, both these incidents happened when the child was born, when the children were born, and they were too young for me to do anything. But the symptoms persisted until they grew to about 4, 5, 6 years old. And so, and because of these high and lows, the children saw the highs. And when she was high, she was actually very lovably high. People sort of, you know, they enjoyed her a lot. So they remember the mother as being very effusive, very welcoming, very friendly. You know, sometimes when you go back, I would find in a house, like, don't know, 8 or 9 children from the school, you know. The school friends all come in and childcare kind of thing, you know. And then one day she went to buy a water cooler, put at home so that everybody could have a drink without having to boil water and all that. So yeah, things like that. Yeah. So the expenditure, things like that were very yeah. We had to watch it because we were not that well to do, right? I had just started a business, you know, and yeah. But the other thing about this was that this condition actually has some genetic issues, you know, meaning that it can be genetic, right? And of course, I think the past history, you know, showed that it sort of passes, it can pass on, you know, and so I was doubly careful with the children, because just in case the children had that same thing and something triggers it, yeah. And so because of that, we realized that stress is one of the issues, yeah, and which is why we never ever put our children through tuition, through extra. We never checked the report books. We never really bother about PSLE and so on. We just say, did you do your homework? You know, have you finished it? You know, and that's it. We don't even check that they did the homework, and then we expect them. We put that responsibility upon them to be responsible for their own education, you know. And I think this trust rubbed off a little bit on them, so that they became a bit more like, oh, okay, mom trusts us to do this, mom and dad trust us to do this. So yeah, they would just go on to do it. Yeah. Like I remember my child, The second one especially were a bit willful. She exhibited some of the ups and downs too that I could see, and I was really very concerned for her. And so therefore, you know, she got her way a little more than most children would have, you know. So I didn't put the pressure on her, and so she didn't do well for her PSLE or do well as in like her marks during the year was very bad because never study, right? But 4 weeks, 2 months before the exams, the PSLE or the O levels, you know, I would just sit them aside and tell them, hey, you know, this is a very important exam. What's going to happen to you? You know, if you don't do this well, you know, what's going to happen? And then they will study. And then when the crunch came, you know, so whole year, bad results. And then when the exam came, good result. They were able to do well enough to move on, you know. Yeah. But I think that early responsibility, the early trust that we put upon them, help them to understand the situation of our situation, both the dad and the mom, much better, you know. And I guess also the way we banter, Waihan and myself, sometimes we would try to laugh at certain issues. You know, you can get very angry over something, you know, especially when you come back and find that the bank account is empty, you know, then you get very angry, you know, but then after a while, you'll laugh about it, you know, yeah, and then you're okay, I'm going to work harder tomorrow, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah, I think that helped the children, our interaction helped them to understand that mental illness is not what you call down all the time.
Not dead end.
Yeah, it's not a dead end. Yeah, that we can get out of it. Yeah, so that was and that was how we built the kids up. Yeah.
Okay, so that's wonderful to know. This is like most important thing. You focus on doing things that are de-escalating the situation, reducing stress.
Yes.
Right, and then have bantering and laugh about it after the effect, right? And not
not hold it to heart.
Yes, not hold it to heart, and that create more stress, I would say, right?
Yeah,
with
correct,
the emotional issue and all that.
Yeah.
So you feel that, you know, Waihan, you know, especially if one thing that you could bring to mind, what did your children or Ho Fang did that gave you the comfort of inclusiveness?
I think the key word was respect. Someone once asked me, how can you bear to be with Ho Fang 24/7? You know, your husband and wife and your boss and worker, 24/7 literally. You go to work together, you come home together, everything. So I told him, the key thing is I respect him. And I believe it goes the other way too. And when this is evident before the children, even though we often would have a very vigorous argument, to put it metaphorically, vigorous. She
was a husband beater.
Yeah. I punched him. In the tummy when he didn't agree to buy a set of furniture for my daughter.
In public.
Must give the context. So Mr. Fong exaggerated a bit about emptying the bank account. He's a very frugal man, okay? And look at me, I save on all the cosmetic money over 50 years. I never use a single drop. So my daughter was about coming to need her own room, and there was no room for her. So I wanted to buy a set of furniture. And we saw a beautiful set. And my poor mom, who was quite ill with heart troubles and diabetes, had gone out with us to this big mall. And we all loved that set. Asked for the price, affordable. What did Mr. Fong say? He said, oh, let's come back another day. Oh, right? Literally, the fire just shot up. No way you're going to make my mother come out again after her struggles. No? And so, no, this is
she didn't
joke.
believe in the cooling off period.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't
when you want
believe.
to buy
I don't
something, you
believe.
must have a
Don't
cooling
waste
off
time.
period.
Yeah. But this story illustrates two big things. Yeah. I really respect him. He did not hit me back. He did not cut off my pocket money or housekeeping money.
Okay.
And most important, he said nothing, but we went back and signed on the dotted line, paid the check, and the furniture was delivered. So I think this is a lot more give. I cannot dare say give and take. He's the one taking my punches. I just give them.
Well, it's so refreshing to hear both of us, both of you, having laughter when you look back at those times. But there's also a lot of lessons learned that with your sharing, I hope it will help many of our audience out there who are caregiving, right? Now, as for myself, I was traveling extensively when I was working. And most of my family members, my siblings who are close to me, they're all residing in Malaysia. And my husband's side of the family, they are not very close-knitted, all right? And they are my in-laws were all in denial then. So I have no choice but to rope in my children to help look out for my husband when I was traveling, right? At 50% traveling, I really need their help, especially to look out for that, is during whether he consistently take his medication or not, right? And that is essentially very stressful for my children, but I have no choice but to enlist their help as well. So, I feel that if I do not involve my children to look out for their dad, it is difficult to advocate for community inclusiveness because it needs to start from within the home, the core family. And if we are not able to involve family members in the caregiving journey, it is really difficult to expect the community to look out for your loved ones. And it's difficult for the community to integrate them into the society, right? Because they will always be viewed as being isolated, and the stigma will always be there. So really it needs to, the inclusiveness should be built in the home, as a start, right? Otherwise, we will not achieve that within the community. Okay. All right. So let's kind of move on to the fourth step that we talked about earlier, setting sights on hope and future, and to celebrate improvement and progress. Now, Stefan, how did you envision hope then? How do you envision hope when you are dealing with the situation that it was a struggle, it was difficult? So how does hope look like to you to keep you going on this journey of caregiving?
I think the hope you also got to change it. For me, I had to sort of change the definition of hope a little bit, in the sense that when you change expectations, then the hope that you have of improvement becomes like a day-to-day thing. It's no longer one about, oh, okay, I think in 5 years' time, she's going to be back to whom she was when I first married her. There was no such hope. Okay, of course, as in like, I'm not saying I gave up hope on that, but it didn't become the most important thing. The most important thing that was that do it step by step. Okay, if tomorrow she agrees to take her medication, wow, that is a fantastic thing. Right? you know. And the day after that, if she agrees to just go step out of the house and go for a walk with me, okay, that's good enough. You know, because I recognize then that it was going to take a long time. This kind of, and sometimes it may not even happen actually, honestly. But you know, there's always that, like I said, you must always remember the person behind the illness. That this was a person whom you had you loved, you know, and you still love because it was that person that you loved. The illness just came along and, you know, took it away a little bit. But hey, it was not like that before. And so you want to try and, the hope is to try and, what do you call, retrieve whatever it is. And the hope actually was more for her than for myself, because I was still enjoying life and so on. But you think about it and say, oh my goodness, how is she going to go through life with this hanging over her? You know, she's not going to enjoy her life the way she would have enjoyed it. Yeah. So it was step by step. Tomorrow is always a day that I look forward to achieve another small item, achieve another small step, another small step. Yeah. And when it happens, you are very happy, because then you know next day you know, yeah.
So how did you all celebrate? You know, whenever you see an improvement or a progress, how do you celebrate?
Celebrate.
We are not very expressive people.
Oh, no. I remember I always stroke the back of your head, you know. I say, okay, well done.
Okay. That's very encouraging as well.
But he was he was doing okay in the company, both before he started his business, yeah, and after. So while with the SETS group, we actually had a lot of free travel, and that built up a host of, like, it's like a credit in the bank of happy times. And when the difficult times came for him, I guess it was difficult for me too, because every morning you wake up, you look at the sky, it may be blue to others, but it's gray to you. So, but because I think of the compliance, I think that's the key thing for us. You call me a person in recovery, you call me a patient, whatever, yeah. For us, the key thing is to comply. If you obey the instructions of medication, rest, and so on, then it helps, right, to move you forward. It may not be at supersonic speed that you recover, but you will at least be on an even keel. You won't feel so dark every day when you look around you. So that's the one of the psychiatrists who told me that for this particular bipolar condition of mood swings, as you grow older, the swings will be shorter, yeah, and it'll be less frequent. Now that was a very hopeful diagnosis to me, that I could get out of it. So now I'm on a maintenance dosage of lithium. I see the psychiatrist half yearly, and whenever I don't go to see the psychiatrist with Ho Fang, the psychiatrist will know that I am very well. When I go to see her with him, she will look at him and say, "Is everything okay?" So he's truly your barometer. So this other person, the caregiver for the patient, he could be your spouse, your brother, sister, your child, very good friend, whoever it is. This person can be your barometer if you allow. If you are honest and not, hiding things, but showing honestly what you feel and telling honestly what you are doing, I think it helps a great deal, both for the caregiver and for the person in recovery.
No, for me, it's like I set my sight to turn my dysfunctional home into a functional home. And it really broke my heart when then my 15-year-old boy told me there was no future for him. And he basically said, which parents would allow their daughter to marry into a family with his dad being mentally ill. So hearing that, I was determined to provide as much as possible a normal environment for their growing up years, right? Because I have to provide them with hope for the future. I mean, they're still so young, right? If they think hopelessly, then really, what would be the future for them? So for me, is I set my sight on that, truly to do something about it. And that drives my determination to improve the situation for them, right? Yeah. Okay, you know, I think it has been a very interesting sharing and the insight from both of you, Ho Fang and Wai Han. I would probably want to end this discussion by asking what would be the 3 key takeaways for the audience? What would be the 3 key takeaways that you would want to leave with the audience?
Ladies first.
呢無會講啦。First, I think as the patient, I think I had a very confident childhood, growing up as a young worker and so on. And that confidence gave me that shall I say, that trust that I'll overcome the illness. So the first thing is trust yourself. Okay, believe in yourself. 2, trust the caregiver who is dearest to you. Yeah, you must trust that the person has your best interest at heart, even though sometimes the advice is against what you want. And third, for me, I have a faith. So I hope in God that come what may, He will get things right. I may not, my caregiver may not, but He will. And I think that is the most important thing.
Thank you, Wai Han. I truly appreciate that insight and sharing. Yes, Ho Fang?
I think Wai Han brought up a point which we didn't really talk about too much in the earlier, but what she said about a faith is very important, at least to me and to Wai Han, to us. While we may, this faith, I mean, it's a God that you believe in. You can be, you know, any, but it can be any God that you believe in, any faith. But you must have that faith that that not that things will turn out right, but that whatever happens, you know, you can still carry on. You can still keep going. Yeah. So yeah, that part is very important. The second part really is the other thing that we want. I would like the audience to take away is that always remember. I speak from the point of view of a husband. You know, this person you married, you loved her, and that's a person that whatever she is now, you know, whether mental illness is like losing an arm or a leg. If your wife loses, your spouse loses an arm or a leg, does that mean you love her less? You know, it doesn't. Yeah. So there is always a person. Remember the person behind that illness. Yeah, and that will help get you through. Each of us will have different obstacles. You know, for us, for Wai Han and myself, we were blessed with having a strong family support. Everybody, you know, that kind of thing. And yeah, some families or some situations may not have that. And we have to recognize that and find different ways. And this is where I think CAL comes in, you know, because there are different areas of support, right? not just So this is where I think CAL has played a very important will or can play a very important role, in caregivers.
Thank you, Wai Han and Ho Fang. Appreciate your sharing and being very honest and open about this sharing. I think I personally learned also a lot from both your sharing. So now I would like to kind of open to the audience to put forward any burning Q&A you have for any one of us to address your question. And please feel free, you can just turn on your video and raise the question or put it in the chat for us.
I do see one question in the chat, Margaret. It's from Joe Neo. And I believe that Joe is referencing your book. I'm interested in the last pages. You mentioned that you are the prevention of suicidal. I came across people close to doing that. And I would like to know what you could do as a friend. So this is around suicide ideation. Would you have something to say in that regard?
Okay. So I volunteer for Caring for Life, and it's an organization that raises awareness for community carers so that when you come across a friend who is in need of help because the friend is experiencing suicidal ideation, it is very important that you learn first to communicate with the person. And you learn to look out for help signals from the party. And then you see whether you are in the position to help de-escalate, that the person will not try to attempt to complete the suicide, all right? But if the person does not respond positively to your intervention, then you need to refer the person to professional help. And there are professional organizations that could provide the help. And if you are interested more, I would suggest that you sign up to attend the lesson. It's just a 4-hour program to really provide you with some basic tools to know how to communicate, how to look out for signals, what are the things that you shouldn't do, and where do you refer them for professional help, right?
Thank you very much. That was a very strong response, and I appreciate that, you addressing that. I actually, I noticed that Tim made a comment. He really likes Wai Han's quote about her children. In their quiet ways, they were supporting me. And I just want to say, as someone who grew up in a household with an older sibling who was diagnosed with mental illness since 1995, I had shared this before in previous platforms where I felt for my parents because my mom and my dad at one point, I think they kind of felt guilty that they had to allocate so much attention around my sister, and I'm the youngest of 4, and so I have 2 older brothers as well. But there's one thing that I've told caregivers that I've met since volunteering with Cal is that for those of you who are parents, please know that you are not a bad parent. You are, if anything, you're actually showing your other children your capacity to love. And that's what you're teaching us. And that's what I grew up learning in my household. So thank you for your sacrifice and for all the love that you have for your family and still being parents in spite of the challenges that you have in your personal life. I think we have a question, Margaret, from Joe, where you mentioned the cost earlier for being mindful of individuals who may be having suicide ideation. Did you say it was Caring for Life?
Yes.
Okay. I hope that answers your question, Joe. Okay, so I hear some of you might be contemplating whether or not you want to ask a question. Do raise or type it into the chat box, and it'll be much easier for us to go through it from there. Thank you, Mo Ching. I see that you have to leave, but thank you very much for joining us this evening. Margaret, if you don't mind, I do have a couple of comments as a viewer of the panel as well. I just want to say thank you so much to Wai Han as well as Ho Fang for being so inspiring. And I really love the banter that the two of you have as a married couple. Because of my family background, I've been dealing with caregiver burnout and it triggered depression for me in 2016. So I actually have a fiance who has put up with a lot of my own symptoms. So when I hear the stories about how Wai Han, has to like punch Ho Fan in the tummy, which we don't encourage violence in general. but I can definitely relate, and I think Ho Fang, the world needs more partners like you.
Yes.
And I feel very fortunate for my fiance who's always putting up with but he's always supportive, and he comes along to CAL events and even though he's technically a secondary caregiver now, because he's soon to be married to me and will bury into the madness that is my family. But yeah, thank you. You guys are a great example for other families out there. I see we have Angie who has raised her hand. Angie, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Actually, mine is more on sharing, because I myself also as a bipolar disorder patient. And even though I have gone through the journey of a few episodes, but when my son, when he's set 4, and when he go through the same challenge, I not even pick up the symptom. After that, I realized that the day-to-day communication, I mean, the close communication with family member is very important, because my son, I thought he's okay because he looked okay. He go to school, he come back home, he eat his dinner. So I don't get to pick up the symptom until that he need to go to the professional help. So I find that on one hand is that sometimes we don't get to pick up the symptom, we don't self-blame ourselves, even though I don't self-blame. And secondly is that I find that among the family especially, the communication very important. Yeah, so from there I get to learn to always have a empathy heart, that the connection and the relationship must be close and sort of to support and strengthen and help each other. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Angie. And that's exactly what I feel that, our panel was talking about today, about how Ho Fan and Wai Han created an inclusive family, a safe space within the home to be able to provide support for our loved ones. So thank you, Angie, for your sharing. I do see a question from Ivan Ong. Margaret, I'll just read it out to you. Caregiving journey is full of ups and downs, sometimes like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. When a loved one seems recovering from the illness, should I, as a caregiver, raise my expectation on her to become better, or be cautious that she will relapse? That's an everyday question all of us face. Yeah.
Yeah, I will say something, and Ho Fang and Wai Han, you can jump in as well.
Yes, please.
It is only natural to expect there will be relapse in recovery of mental illness. And recovery means that the relapses will be far and few, which is a sign that the person will be in full recovery. And that's very positive. But whatever you do, raising your expectation is you need to be realistic. This is what recovery looks like for mental illness. So it's not about being cautious, but this is the basic knowledge that we need to have about mental illness. and then you manage that expectation in how you respond to your loved one. Yeah.
Thank you so
Anything
much,
else?
Margaret.
Yeah, anything else?
Ho Fan, do you, or Wai Han, do you have
to
anything
add?
that
Yeah.
you'd like to? Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
sorry if I'm carrying.
Yeah, you go ahead. You go ahead. Yeah.
No, I have nothing to add for this. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Margaret said it well. Yeah.
I saw one question popping up where the person asked about the expense, whether we got any help to
That's
go
from
through
Phyllis.
this.
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, when you go through the polyclinic route, you really get C-class treatment from the finance point of view, but you still get A-class treatment from the caring doctors. That's my experience all along. So I was fortunate that although in the beginning we had to go to private psychiatrists because things happen in the middle of the night, kind of thing. But later on, after referral through the government clinic route, is minimal cost. So yeah, I suggest go see your GP or your one of these accredited GP who can refer you for subsidized treatment.
Margaret, would you like to weigh in on how the experience has been for your family?
Well, I obviously started with the early years. I mean, been caregiving for 14 years, 11 years really through private. And the last 3 years, I begin to, admit my husband to IMH after consulting his psychiatrist, what is the best next step for him, because he was not getting any better, right? And it seems like the illness has progressed to a state where you can't sustain on an outpatient treatment because of non-compliance most of the time. Now, it really surprised me when I admitted my husband to a C ward, okay, because of the extended stay required for the different treatment that was tried out on him. Surprisingly, the panel of mental health professionals, even in C ward, they're really very caring, very respectful of the patient, and really involved me in the discussion on the plans of treatment, and we talk about treatment in hospital and how to make it easier for it to be compliant once it's discharged. So I feel that today the standard of care from IMH is really respectable. Yeah, I was surprised, but it was really a pleasant surprise. The care standard, even in C ward, I would say it's good, and they are subsidized at C ward. Yeah.
I would actually have to agree, because my family, when my sister was first brought into the hospital at IMH in 1995, we went through the introductory baseline route, because it was a crisis, and so we brought her into A&E at IMH, and we've kind of gone through that. And actually, when I had my diagnosis in 2016 for depression due to caregiver burnout, I actually per what Wai Han suggested, which is going to your polyclinic, and so far the journey has been thankfully quite positive for me as well in terms of my recovery. So I would say that I'm quite grateful that compared to a lot of other countries, ours, there's always ways to grow in terms of the mental health care landscape, but I think it's actually there is support available. Phyllis actually asked a follow-up question, which is, I think a lot of us can relate to, and I know for my family, we experienced this from the 80s, from the 90s. Phyllis says, and this is quite rampant today as well, if family members are ashamed of patients' conditions, how do we deal with that? How would we approach that? Margaret, do you want to take that first?
All right. First, I have, in my own experience, I explain what mental illness is. From a medical perspective, it's a brain illness. I actually explain that condition to them in medical terms, explain in medical and layman terms combination so that they do not see that as a taboo, right? They understand it's just like any other illness, all right? And sometimes there would be question around whether this is genetic or not. But again, scientifically, there are data to support. And if you explain that clearly to the family members, that will probably help to destigmatize the illness, right? Because just like any illness, even cancer in the earlier days, it was a taboo. People don't like to talk about cancer. Yeah.
Yeah. Ho Fang, Wai Han, how has the experience been for you with regards to external family members?
Yeah, I think, of course, it makes it more difficult if your family members are ashamed of it, and therefore, the support and inclusiveness is not there. I mean, I'll share, well, like my mother, when she sort of first found out that Wai Han had this condition, she was totally shocked. And because Wai Han had been such caring and compassionate and effective, efficient lady, my mother loved her, wow, she's so fantastic, and suddenly she had this problem, and then she came to me and she actually asked me, she said, did you know that she had this problem? Then I said, yes, I knew she had this problem. That was when she was 18 years old, I said. And I married her when she was 20. We got married when she was 26. I was 28. Yeah. I said, but true. After when I got to know her, she was out of this problem already. She had no issue. Then she said, why were you so stupid? Okay, this is why were you so stupid as to marry her? And then I looked at her and I said, all of us, I said, have some problem or other. We look at the good things when we get married. You cannot marry a perfect person. There's no such thing. I said, yeah. I said even sorry, I just be a bit cheeky. Because my mother likes Lee Kuan Yew a lot. I said even Lee Kuan Yew has problems. I said, would you agree? Then she looked at me. I said, yeah, but you still like him. I said, and then she said, yeah. Yeah. And then after that, she sort of like, okay, she accepted it, and then I said, think of the person, think of her before this illness descended, and was she, you loved her, you enjoyed it. I said, yeah, so they're good and bad, it comes together. Then she said, okay. And then she never mentioned it ever again. And she became a lot more respectful of Wai Han, as in like, okay, the illness is, one thing like, yeah, mother-in-law, daughter-in-law, there's this. So, yeah, but she became a lot more respectful after that. And she was a lot more, she said, okay, you know what you are doing, And that's it. And same with my sisters and my brother and sisters. They said, hey, you know what you are doing, and we have always looked up to you to do what is right, what is the correct thing, And if you say this is the way it is, then this is the way it is. I was very lucky that they were all. I was the alpha, so they sort of like, yeah. Helps to be alpha sometimes. Yeah.
If he's alpha, I must be alpha plus because I punched him, right? I always like to say to people, what's wrong? If a person is diabetic, the person will tell family and friends even, oh, I have diabetes, so I can't take so much cake or whatnot, right? And sometimes he even jab himself in public before the meal, or swallow his metformin, whatever pills. That's it. So mental illness is just another type of sickness. It's not a sickness in your pancreas or your stomach, a sickness in your head, your brain, chemical imbalance, like what Margaret said. Right? So why do people stigmatize it so much? Right? I think all the old horror stories of people being locked in chains, carrying their hair dirty, eating their own output from the backside, all these things that scare people so much about the mentally ill. And that kind of negative association has just carried on. So it's for us. And that's why I'm so thankful to have this opportunity that Cal gave me and Ho Fang to come and share. Yeah, because come on, look at me. Normal enough, right? For a 65-year-old.
It's been such a pleasure having you on the panel, honestly. I think we have one more question from Angie. Angie, do you want to unmute?
Okay. Actually, I find that there's a encouraging thing that happening, because my son, when he applied for town council and he was asked the question about the mental illness, then my son chose to be honest with the medical condition. Then even the doctor go through it, and doctor say, so long you take the medication, you shouldn't be any problem. So even the town council accepted him to work with them. And after that, he changed another job. He changed another job, a contractor, same thing again. They don't mind this medical condition. So I find that it's very encouraging that the trend is changing.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Angie, the enemy is actually the insurance companies. They are the rascals, yeah.
My husband is the insurance agent.
Tell him to change. Tell him to tell his bosses to change the rule.
Thank you for that, Angie. And on that note, I see quite a few comments that are consistent in the chat, in that people are just expressing appreciation for Ho Fang and Wai Han for being so candid. And Margaret as well, in sharing your own journey with your own family. I echo the statement. Thank you so much for being so encouraging and having such an admirable attitude, and being so candid with us, being so honest. Nobody will ever truly understand what the caregiver journey is like until you have experienced it for yourself. And I speak, I'm sure I speak on behalf of the group here today, that we really appreciate all of you speaking about your experience. I do see one question from Florence. She's asking if, in terms of managing expectations for her experience, does that mean that if my daughter has schizophrenia, it's quite hard for her to go back to baseline? Would you like to weigh in, Margaret?
To go back to baseline, I guess you mean is that there will be period where you can see her as lucid and as normal as she can be, right? Like we mentioned earlier, for mental illness, even for schizophrenia, recovery means that, when you have full recovery, the relapses will be far and few. And which means that you will be able to see your loved one having more moments of lucidity, all right, and being at present with you. And so, there is still hope, because in the earlier years, I enjoy honeymoon period where I have a higher degree of presencing from my husband, like 70% present, 30% in his own world. But at this stage, it's like 30% present most of the time, 70% in his own world. So, if she can be as well and remain compliant in her medication, you would be able to see those moments where you can enjoy her or him. All right? Yeah. In this case, it's her, your daughter.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Margaret. Mona also mentioned, talking about how, as with everyone in this group, we have our ups and downs, and sometimes when you think it's improving, it slides down again, and burnouts are many. I mean, I come from a family with this experience, and my burnout was what triggered my depression. But that's why I am so grateful for organizations like CAL, where we have our support groups, and it's so important that we are here for each other, and it's so important that we keep sharing our experiences and support one another. So yeah, I actually I realized it's past 8:30 p.m. So I just want to quickly address one question in the group chat. Someone was asking if there is a support group somewhere for parents who are caring for loved ones with schizophrenia. That's something we can take on offline, but essentially, Kel, we are looking at having specific support groups for certain types of caregivers, meaning that if your loved one has dementia, we have a program for that. If your loved one has eating disorder, so that's definitely akan datang. So please do stay tuned. In the meantime, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Everybody has been so wonderful staying with us and asking all of your questions. Thank you so much. Thank you again to Margaret. Thank you again to Ho Fang and to Wai Han. I want to give you all a group virtual hug, but before we go, please remember to get your copy online on those links that you see on your screen right now. It's going for $16.90. We have it in English as well as Mandarin. And generously, the publishers and Margaret have agreed that kindly donate 40% of the proceeds to our programs here at CAL so that we can continue providing support for families who are caregiving for loved ones with mental illness. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. I hope it's been insightful for you, and we look forward to the next session. Take care and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you.